I need this nice house and this nice car, and you're worried about what people say about you, and that is just, it's pathetic, really. Now, renting a building, I can understand that. Like, that's something I would spend money on if I started out, because you can just stop renting a building. All right, guys, I'm all by myself today because these women get their hair done. It takes 6 daggone hours, and it's like a 10% difference in how they look. I can't tell a big difference when she gets back. You got to say she does. It definitely lighter every time, and it's fixed. Her hair's fixed. But I guess like maybe I stare at her roots to see how bad they are. So I just want to jump on here and talk about what we can afford, what people can afford, what new businesses can afford, and I think we kind of covered this today. But I just want to like just dive deeper into like when you're trying to make decisions on purchasing things. I mean, y'all know, like we've told you, like I drove the same truck for 11 years, paid for the same house for 11 years, paid for my little mobile home. And that was choices that I made because I wanted to afford my business. And I could have bought, I mean, right before I quit the power company, I think they approved me for like a $500,000 house 12 years ago with no plans. I could just build whatever I wanted and they was okay with it. And while that seemed like a cool idea to have a big, nice house, I knew it was a terrible idea because they said I could afford the house. But with the life that I was going for, I couldn't afford the house. It would have just kept me from being able to invest in what I wanted to, and I'd just been working for a dang house payment. And there's people out there that's always talking about, I've got a, I need this nice house and this nice car, and you're worried about what people say about you, and that is just, it's pathetic, really, to feel that way. And I know that's most everybody because that's how we've been indoctrinated to feel. And that's, so we was talking about houses the other day, house costs and what people are paying for houses. Man, there's two reasons that houses are expensive. Number one reason, well, the main reason houses are expensive kind of are both these reasons. But so one company come in, and I'm just not naming names because I know this stuff will get throttled back. You start talking trash. But one company comes in, and they buy 10 houses in the neighborhood for going price. Let's just say $200,000. And then they buy an 11th house, and the asking price is $200,000, and they offer $250,000 just over the asking just to pay it. And you're like, well, that's stupid. Well, it wasn't for them because they already own 10 houses over there. And they paid the $250,000. Now the market shows that somebody was willing to pay $250,000 even though it was them. Now the 10 houses they own, they start selling those houses off. And so maybe it's $240,000, maybe it's $250,000, maybe it's $260,000, because now the scale, like the history from the sale, is higher. So once they sell their second one for that much, now it even reinforces it even more. So they make $50,000 off 10 houses, and then sell the other one for the same thing they bought it for. And that's happened in a lot of bigger cities by this same company. But that only works because we're stupid enough to overpay for the houses. Everybody complains how expensive houses are. It's because y'all keep buying the houses that are too expensive because you have to feel good about yourself and have some nice house in this perfect area. And if we don't fall for that and we're not tricked into doing that and fighting each other over a house, then, like when you make a decision that I'm willing to pay this much money for a house, and you go looking, it seems like every time you end up paying more because it's a little more, and you're like, I could probably squeeze that out of it. And just to get this house because you think it's cool and people are going to like it. We used to work, when I worked for the power company, we would get these raises for living expenses. So when you was out of town, and we'd get like a $10 raise or something for living expenses at one point. And so we were working 16 days a month. The people's like, oh, that's $160 a month. I can go buy this on payments and it's pretty much free. I'm like, God, y'all are broke as hell. and you get a little bump in pay, and immediately you go borrow money on something else because you got a little more money. And that's the thing that ties everybody down and makes them miserable. You know, we go on vacations, we have things that not necessarily need, but you know, razors and our plane and the semi with the race trailer and all that stuff. But we only have that because we didn't have a house payment. We didn't have these big bills reoccurring every month. So when we bought something, y'all paid all year. You know, y'all paying $2,000 a month for a year for something. Well, I just took that money and bought something else with it that I wanted. But it would kill me to think I had to pay 30 years on a house. That's the sound of owing on something for 30 years. For me personally, is insane. Um, I mean, I know that's most people's reality, and that's what they decide to do. But you know, when I had the choice, I decided to spend 10 grand and suck it up for a while. Now, so you know, trying to borrow money on something real expensive in the beginning is super risky in a business. Like if you can't sell it fast, like we was talking about buying a truck. Well, you can sell a truck pretty fast, so it's going to lose a little value. But you're not just stuck with something you can't get rid of, or you're going to lose like almost all your profit on it, or taking out some kind of loan that, like some kind of everybody's talking about these small business loans you can get for 50 grand with a new LLC, and that's crazy to take that loan out. Because if you can't pay the 50 grand back from your business, getting a regular job owing 50 grand is very overwhelming. Just to try to pay that back, and it's better to just struggle through it and learn to fight through the thing anyway. There's a lot of times I was so broke, but learning to be broke helps. And if I just keep getting loans and keep piling stuff up, it never does work out in the end. But I mean, the way I look at it, and there's a lot of people that's different. So people take these big jobs, and you'll hear this success story. My list was getting me. Where somebody borrows a bunch of money, buys houses, becomes super rich, but there's a ton of people that's bought houses or invested in something else with big loans that have lost their ass and didn't make it. Went into foreclosure, all this stuff. I mean, it's more of those in success stories. You just don't hear about them. But the way I look at it, so let's say when I started my business, I was taking no loans. I had a loan on some property that I paid 30 grand for, and I paid that off as I paid that down pretty quick, but I kept that open. That was the only thing I owed on. I kept it open so I'd have credit because I didn't want to lose all my credit. So that was $300 a month or something like that. I mean, it still, sometimes it sucked to have that payment, but it kept my credit open in case I needed something later on. And that allowed me, you know, that was my property my trailer was on and my shop was on. So I didn't have a shop payment. I didn't owe on building rent, stuff like that. Now renting a building, I can understand that. Like that's something I would spend money on if I started out, because you can just stop renting the building. That's not really a risk. I mean, if you signed a year contract and you go out of business, it's going to be hard to get money from you. But personally, I would get rid of everything I owed money on that I possibly could. Knock my expenses down all the way, because you're not going to make any money off personal expenses. And I would just go as long as I could without borrowing something against the business that was too much of a risk. Because the bank says, you know, you want to go buy a house, and the bank's like, okay, well, if you're 40% of your income, I think, can be your house payment. That is crazy to think that 40% of the money you make every month goes straight to your house, and then you got to live off the rest. It's just not what I would pick that. I wouldn't have a house that nice if that's what it took. So let's say when I had my plasma table, I mean, it cuts out metal parts if y'all don't know what that is. But basically I had one, I built half of it, bought some parts, put it together. So I was pretty cheap in it, and it's paid for. And my business was pretty established, 3 or 4 years here in town. So the chances of us keeping it going was pretty good. So that not having a payment was nice. But then you look at, I need a laser, and that's just going to turn my efficiency, like quadruple my efficiency through a lot of ways I could explain. But so to get a payment to be able to get that machine, that's a risk. I mean, it's a risk that I can't just sell that. Those aren't easily sellable. Well, they are, but just not for what you've got in them, probably. But it was saving me 2 to 3 employees a month. So the payment was less than the employees cost me. So it's the payment still risk, but it's like a calculated risk. Um, so we didn't mind, like we've planned calculated risk like that. We've planned calculated risk on buying this building down here in town. We could always sell it and get more than what we paid for the building. We got a good deal on it. We only buy equipment that's really going to do us a good job and return a profit. Like if it's going to break even, we're not going to put money on it. It's got to make us money pretty exponentially to be able to take that risk for us. A lot of people want to take big loans real quick and grow super fast, but I promise you, if it's just you growing the business and you've never ran one, super fast is the best way to die. If you got somebody that's built a lot of businesses, taking a big loan with a contract, that's signed contract for some kind of job, that's a totally different scenario. We're talking about people starting out from nothing. But still, we don't personally take risk on ourselves. We do owe, like on the Yukon, I think, that Hannah drives, we owe $12,000 on it. And we keep that payment open just for the same reason as before, is to keep our credit alive. Just in case we want to go buy something or need it, we'll still have it. That's the only thing, though. But I think really the thing that aggravates me seeing people try to get ahead and do stuff is listening to people like the banks who are there to make money. I mean, that's their job, is to give you the most money that they think you can possibly pay back and charge interest on that. And right now it's a lot of dang interest, so people's getting hung out with these big payments. Luckily, all our payments were fixed interest rates. We did no variable. So I paid 0.5% more for a little while, but now mine's still 3 and everybody else is paying 9. But society tells you can afford it. That don't mean you can afford it. That don't mean you can sit here and make that payment, or should you make that payment. If it's not a good calculated risk, then you shouldn't do it. And that's the thing, is they can't run your business. They don't know anything about your business. They're just saying, "Oh, you make this much money, you can pay this payment back." But if it's not making you way more than the payment, then I would stay away from it, at least for a while, to get started, just in case, because you never know what's going to happen. And hell, really, right now, there's some industries that are still doing good. There's some still that's suffering from all the backlash from shortages and then over stocking. So we're all scrambling and doing things that we can do to stay afloat and stay ahead. And it's time. We've sat here and watched our industry get shorted and then flooded, and the rest of this year is probably going to still be a flooded year. So we're having to get creative. We're having to maneuver and do some things that it's not what we wanted to do, but we're doing it anyway. But if we were strung out so tight on all these payments, the slightest thing happened would crash us. Now we're in trouble. So I would rather stay mostly paid for and run a lean business and a really lean personal life. I mean, I'd rather drive a 10-year-old car. I think my cars are 10 years old. Yeah, 9. All our cars are 9, 10 years old. I'd rather drive that any day than have some $80,000 truck payment just so somebody thought my truck was cool. Because I think that new truck smell goes away in about a month. And now, if you needed it for business, if we needed a new, like we was trucking a lot of our stuff or something, needed a new semi truck, or a semi truck new enough that it wasn't going to break down all the time and maintenance be an issue, then that's a different story. We'd calculate that risk on what it costs for us to have it trucked or truck it ourselves. But yeah, I mean, I know that's not the norm for people to not really buy the nicer things, but I mean, I can definitely. That's one of the things I hate about moving into my new house, is it is nice and it is new and it is paid for, though. But I feel like I'm less able to talk trash about doing that. But at least we did live in the $10,000 home for 11 years, and nobody made fun of us. We didn't regret it. We had great times in there, and it helped us get ahead big time. So just when you're talking about what you can afford, uh, it's not what payment can you make, it's what payment should you make, and what kind of risk is involved in that payment, and calculate if that risk is worth it for your business, and if you falter, is that risk going to shut you down?